Okay, if you could just say your name and what you studied and where.
Julian Oliver. I studied Bachelor of Commerce with a major in international business and a minor in Russian language at Carleton University from 2011 to 2015.
Cool. What were your key motivations for going to university?
Key motivations for going to university were better job prospects after I finished, as well as general education.
Did you ever consider studying your bachelor's degree internationally? And if so, why?
I didn't consider studying my bachelor's degree internationally, partially because I didn't recognize that there were opportunities available at the time. Looking back, I would have evaluated that as a realistic option among my schools I applied to.
What was the most important attribute of a university during your selection process?
During the selection process, some of the motivations were whether I would receive a scholarship, the distance from home, the transportation to and from where I was from originally. That was important around when I would either be traveling back for summers or just in general to go back. Some other things were how the course was structured. At Carleton, I was offered a co-op opportunity throughout the program. I was offered a scholarship. I applied to Queen's as well as an example. I didn't get into Queen's due to the entry requirements, and I just was under the threshold. And I also didn't receive a scholarship opportunity there, even though I did at Carleton.
What universities did you look at or apply to?
I looked at University of Toronto, University of Ottawa,
Okay.
Carleton University, and Queen's University.
Why did you select these specifically as your top choices?
I selected them as my top choices in part due to reputation. The degree that I was looking into was offered there. I didn't feel like I wanted to travel to Quebec for school because of the language barrier, and I found traveling to British Columbia for university was also not of interest, simply just due to the distance. And I felt that I would receive, in general, the same education there as I would have more close by.
Do you feel that students that study internationally get more value in their education over domestic students?
I think there's some pros and cons. Studying internationally, you get quite a different experience compared to your colleagues who would study domestically. If you study internationally, you meet a greater range of people, different ideas, learn about a different country. There's also just the personal challenges of moving to, traveling, and setting up in a different country and getting your education there. Some of the challenges rely on the networking as well as what your intentions are after the degree. So if you study internationally but your goal is to work back home, say in your home city or nearby, the challenge is being exposed to people, job prospects, career opportunities locally. You just wouldn't receive that if you're studying internationally. If your choice was to go internationally and then work where in the country or around the country that you were studying in, most the easiest would be in the EU. You could study in, say, France and get a job in Germany with relative ease. That would be one motivation for going internationally, but it depends on what the intentions are after graduating.
Do you feel that individuals who study abroad gain a competitive advantage when being selected for a job?
Depending on the field, I can speak to my experience in the business stream. Students who, whether they did a full education abroad or whether it was just an exchange program for a year or semester, definitely had a leg up on students who did not have that experience. If you were to work for a company who needed expertise based on the country you went to, or you picked up another language based on where you traveled and studied, that's a significant advantage among students who didn't take that opportunity.
Okay. While you were at university, did you ever witness any experiences of culture shock from international students?
Nothing dramatic that I saw personally.
How about any experiences of like isolation or loneliness or non-inclusiveness of the international students?
Overall in Canada and Ottawa, where I studied, it's a very multicultural city. There are pockets that have cuisines and cultures such as, Chinese, Japanese, Asian, other Asian demographics. You could find just about everything you were looking for in terms of people and culture if you were from another origin country. So I don't think there would be as much of a shock there as there would going to a very homogenous city or country.
Cool. Would you ever consider studying again or furthering your education? And if so, would you consider studying internationally?
I am considering taking an MBA. I would like to include international schools in my prospects. Some of the reason would be so that I could achieve potentially international work opportunities.
Okay. Which countries would you consider studying abroad in?
There are two schools that I have an interest in terms of studying abroad. Actually, I take that back. I would be interested in studying in the U.S. As well as the U.K., and I had considered briefly in France at the INSEAD school.
Okay. Why would you select these countries over others?
I would select the countries over others simply due to the reputations of the schools that are available within the countries.
Okay. If moving to any of these countries, would you have any issues or demotivating factors that you might worry about before heading there?
I would have no issues or concerns in terms of the U.S. or the U.K. There's no language barrier. The culture is very close to what I've grown up with in Canada. In terms of France, that would be more challenging. I don't know French as a language, and it would just take the transition period would just be a little bit more difficult. And I feel like that might also be a slight impairment in terms of getting off the ground faster in terms of my classes, getting to know students, as well as just generally getting up to speed in that country.
What key information do you believe that students need to be aware of before selecting a university abroad? Like if the university was going to provide these students with a couple like information booklets, what would you want to know mostly about?
One of the key factors or key statistics that I look at in terms of graduate positions, at least, is the exit statistics. So at the MBA programs that I've been looking into, I've been looking at the exit statistics, which show basically what percentage of students get a job within a 3 or 6 month time frame, what the increase in salary is from entry to exit, as well as what industries students end up going into.
Okay. How many hours a day would you estimate you spend on social media per day?
Probably 1 hour.
1 hour. And what sort of marketing material do you find you and other students you've been with respond to best?
If it is in terms of simply just getting my attention, a very brief ad or some kind of flyer would do the job. If it's if I've narrowed it down to a few top options, I'd be interested in a much more detailed pamphlet or some kind of brochure, or a full folder full of information on the school or program.
Okay. Do you feel that a brochure would be more effective than a video guideline, or would you prefer having the handhelds? What would you prefer?
I think both have their own place. Some people would be much more interested in a video program to show them what the school looks like, what the campus looks like, basically get a glimpse of what life would look like if they went there for schooling. And a pamphlet would also serve its own purpose. I feel like the information contained in each one would and should be different.
Okay. All right. That's all I need. Thank you.